Right, you may remember from last time that I've got my wood, but I was waiting for it to be sanded and thickness. Well, Roger, my mate, has actually come up and done the goods for me. That's the bridge as was. It was twice as thick as that. It's now been machined. Very nicely done. So that's just going to be shaped and made into a bridge, which, say just, it's quite a bit of a job, but it'd be an interesting job to do. The wood now, which was roughly sawn, has all been planed and sanded to the right thickness. Everything about that's right now. Nice grain. I've sanded the edges to get them nice and flat so they fit together perfectly like that. As you can see, they'll join properly, and the grain's all matching up nicely. So that's all ready to go really. All I've got to do is glue these two halves together, which isn't as difficult as it could be. I'll show you how we do that. First of all, we draw a line on the work surface like that, and then we use these little, I don't know what they call them, they're like hoops that don't know them very well if you're an idiot like me. But you nail these across the line. I've had a piece of chipboard with a knot in it before, but I think I've got one now. There we go. One. Two. Always have a few spare of these. Don't try this at home, as they say. That's the first lot in. We open this up, put that there, well, in fact, don't put that there, put that there, put the other way up, sorry. The rough edge of the wood is against those nails, and we draw another line here, and we bang these in again, but just inside the line. So what should happen now is when I put those two together, you force them in like that, and it actually forces the wood against you. Put a weight on it when we glue it, and then hold it down overnight, and that should be glued. So I'll just show you how we do that. First of all, you don't want to be gluing your wood to the work surface, so you need to put some protection down for that. And what I use is baking parchment, right there. Put that in here. roughly where the middle is going to be. It's about there. Okay. Now we need to glue these. Make sure you get the right way around. Right, there we go. You wouldn't think the two pieces of wood could fit together so many different bloody ways. Anyway, that's it. That's the way it should be. Yep. So, that's correct. Okay. Glue time. Now, normally when you're gluing, you just glue the one surface. But this is so important that you can't afford to have any sort of dead spots. So you've got to make sure the glue is all the way down it. Just clean the end off, there we go. So I'm going to keep the two edges together. Like that. Make sure that's 100% right. I'm going to do this once. That is spot on. Not there, not there. Together like that. Okay, so you get your glue all down the side, quite generously. It doesn't matter if you get any overspill on this, because it will all scrape off afterwards. So, as you glue, rub it in. Okay. Rub it off. That's the glue. Then put that first one in place there with a paper underneath it. And the second one ready to go in. There. Lift it up slightly so they're both touching like that, and push it down. Now you can see the way it's pushed the glue out there, which is fine. No problem with that. I'm just going to get a slightly damp cloth just to wipe the worst of it off. Might want to set that up. There's a little bit of work later on. That's lovely. Then we put our next piece on here. Just the job. Then we just weigh it down. There. I'll put another piece of wood on top of that. And another piece on top of that. Leave that overnight to dry, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have the start of a soundboard. Okay, so sitting there overnight, just drying out. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is sand this down now. Just take the glue off there. Make sure that's nice and level. Then I'll turn it over and sand the other half. And finally decide which side I'm going to use. It's probably going to be this side. And then we'll mark it out for the shape. Mark out the sound hole and the rosettes. And then we'll we'll cut the rosette channels and cut the soundboard out, the sound hole out, and then just trim it to shape. But I think it's going to be nice, that. I do think that's going to be nice. If you don't like sanding, don't build a guitar. Another 10 minutes of this should get this side done, I think. Okay, that's the first side sanded, which is probably going to be the side I'm going to use for my front. I'll just take it out, turn it over very carefully. Right, that's the other side now. It's going to need sanding down. This will take a bit longer because I didn't have the opportunity to wipe the excess glue off, so it'll take a little bit longer just to sand. But I'll crack on with that, and I'll take some more pictures when I've done it. Right, I've sanded both sides of the board, as you can see. This is going to be my top, the facing part. Got a little knot hole there which will be cut out, and that's going to be the back. It's joined really well, no light at all between the joints, as you can probably see if you hold up to the light there, and it's all very good. Tap tone, if you tap it, you can hear it almost sounds a note on its own, so it's got a good tone, it's good and hard, is what you want. Now, all this sawdust is worth keeping, believe it or not. That can always be used with a little bit of clear glue as a filler. So I'm going to put that into a little bag and keep that safe. The next thing we have to do is set this up now for its the work that needs to be done on it. I need to mark it up for the sound hole and for the rosette and for the rings. I'll also mark the shape of the guitar on it, so I'll know what I've got to play with and you know what parts needs to be cut out. But at the moment it's looking quite good. Put together very nicely, in fact. But I'll keep it flat for now, just like that. Big piece of wood on it there, and then we'll start to measure it all up. Okay, this is all sanded now. I've marked the outside shape of the guitar. I've made that slightly oversized, and I've marked the centre point of the sound hole. So what I'm going to do now is just mark out the areas where the rosettes and the rings are going to go, and the sound hole itself. Sound hole first of all. The sound hole is 4 inches, like they are on most guitars, certainly most dreadnoughts. So that's my sound hole. That will be cut out. Okay. Now I've got my first ring, which is 4 4 1 1 8 2 1 8. This is the first ring. That's in. That's the first ring. Second ring is 4 5 6. So again, that's going to be cut out. is the inner diameter of the rosette, and the outer diameter is right. Yes, that's right. Again, that's got to be sliced out. There we go. Oh my god, another one, which is second ring 5 metal, which is 2 1/4. What's that? No. That's right. That goes around there. And that one goes around there. Right. Now, I'm going to cut the rosette ring first of all. Now, the rosette, that's the rosette. If you can see that, it's wood. It's very thin, but these are made in well, they're made around a former, long, and then it's just sliced. So these are just individual little bits of wood, and it's very clever, really, very clever way it's done. That's going to go in there. I need a cutter to do this with. Now, the one I use is it's a Dremel. It's not the ideal. It's not the ideal tool for this. It will do it, but it takes a lot of care. And the thing is, you're likely to make a mistake. You have to accept that. But if you're going to make a mistake, the place to make it is here, because when you build the guitar, your fretboard will cover that. So if you're going to make any mistakes, make them here. So that's where the starting point is going to be. Then we'll cut the circle out and see it from there. But it's not a job I relish. But we'll have a go at it now. Right, the way this is done is that this pivots. Okay, it swivels round on there. Now bear in mind, it doesn't matter about this piece of wood because that's being thrown away. So it doesn't matter if this marks it or anything like that, but that is on a central little pin that's nailed basically straight through the soundboard into the work surface underneath. So that's actually the anchor point. This fits on here. There's a cutting blade on there, if you can see that. That's a little router. And the idea is it will cut a channel. That's the idea. Trouble is, when you switch these things on, they vibrate a lot, an awful lot. So it's important to keep everything tight as you can, but still leave the free movement so it will actually cut the circle. It's not a job that I think anybody relishes because it's so easy to make a mistake. If this thing just goes off slightly, you're knackered. The only saving grace is, and I shouldn't say this really, but I will, if you do mess this side up, because you're only going in a very, very short distance into the wood, you can actually turn it over and do it on the other side. And then you just use that part that you've messed up, you put your sound reinforcement, your sound hole reinforcement over that, and that'll cover your mistake. Well, let's hope we can do without a mistake. This router I've used before, this bit, and it does tend to sort of leave like a feather edge around the hole after it's cut it. That doesn't really matter too much. It's not as neat as it could be, but because this is actually pressed into the recess and then sanded down or scraped down, it will take all that off, so it doesn't really matter. Bit of debate about whether it should be that way up or that way. Depends which way you want the little crow's feet pointing, really. I think I prefer it that way, but it doesn't really matter, I don't think. Right, I'll set this up and I'll switch it back on and you can see how I get on with it. Right, this is the moment of truth. I'm going to switch it on. I want you all to keep your fingers crossed and we'll see what happens. Switch. That should be it. Now we'll find out whether it is. Right. Well, that doesn't look too bad. That should fit in there, which it will, with a little bit of a squeeze. And it's cut it quite cleanly. Wow, miracle. So I'm just going to clean that up a little bit, get the dust and debris out. If that's okay, I'll then I'll cut the other two, which are narrow ones, and then I'll cut the sound hole out, and I'll trim the edge of this off with a jigsaw, very carefully, and then we'll be ready to put the back bracing on. So, up to now, things are looking okay.